Lisa. I'm ready to scrap these photos from a trip that we took, a day trip, to a garden in the Stowe Botanical Garden, Gastonia, North Carolina, back in June. And I have some photos. I showed these in one of my other videos about how to crop and arrange your photos on 4x6 prints. So I have some of the different flowers and things that we saw, but mostly pictures of us. This is my favorite one of the group that shows my husband here with he'd walked through the waterfall and it's got the spots on his shirt, so it really shows it all at one time. But I have a separate picture of him on this one, of him actually walking through the fountain, I call it. And so I want to showcase that for sure on the picture. I also have him blowing out a candle. It happened to be his birthday. This picture my mom took. My camera is really hard to adjust to get it to focus these days. If you don't know just the right, you don't just hold it just right, because I dropped it and broke it. It's a pretty old camera now, but I thought it was pretty good despite that. This particular picture I did, my husband took of Mother and I have a 5x7 of that, and I think I'm going to use it on a different layout, so I don't think I'm going to do it on this one, but I went ahead and got it out. Picture of the three of us and one of her by herself. So I want to put these on a 2-page spread, and I'd like to do some really bright colors with them. So I pulled out this 6x6 papers, which is an old collection called Saturday Morning, and there's a lot of very bright prints in here that I think will be fun to work with, and I thought I would use some punches. I originally got out my circle punches, but I was wondering what I was going to use for a title for this page, and this photo really makes me think of Young at Heart. So then I thought, you know, I have a heart punch. I have a little heart punch as well, but I thought it might be fun to do like some larger circles and then the hearts inside the circles as part of the decoration on this page. So we'll punch out some fun things there, but first I'd like to arrange these photos on my background paper. I've got a couple of different kinds of green cardstock here. These came in, a friend sent me a whole bunch of stuff, and this was included in it, so it's not a particular brand or anything of cardstock. I think it may have come in some kits or something like that. So so I don't know what colors these are, but I like both of them. I like the bright one. Let's see what goes well with the paper that we're going to use. If either of these, well, they both do. They're both good fit. I kind of think the darker one might be just slightly better. Yeah, I can't really say which is the best here. I don't know, but I'm kind of leaning towards the darker ones. I think I'm going to use those two. Let's move our punches out of the way here. And the only thing I know is I want these to lead off, and then we'll just see where the rest of this stuff fits. I don't really have a preconceived notion or a sketch already for this page. I'm going to trim this down. So I'm going to do that. And I'm going to be doing some trimming off of these too, but we'll get the idea here. This was kind of the last thing we did, was take this picture. I'm not sure this one's going to fit on there, and I wish I had printed this a little bit smaller, because it's kind of overwhelming the page a little bit. Since it was about my husband, maybe I should just put this on the same page with him. I need to put something else over here. I don't like the flowers there. But I'm going to have too many photos on the page if I do these together, I think. I think I can do something with this and talk about the birthday and then Young at Heart for the title. So it might have sort of a subtitle up here and then Young at Heart, and then come along with the rest of these photos. One of the things I like to do for collages a lot of times is just sort of bring them together in a corner and kind of have them again, I'll trim these down, but have them come together here. I might be able to squeeze this one in. I don't know. I'll pull that down some. Can probably squeeze that in. And do a collage over here on the right. So I'm not going to have tons of room for embellishment, just probably a little less than I thought. And depending on what, I may not use that. I'm not sure I'm going to use that. I think we'll take that out. Let's put those up here, and then I'll have a little bit more room for some circles punched out of some color to go with the page, and of course I'll need somewhere to throw in a little bit of journaling to talk about our day. I don't need tons of journaling space for this page. I think the memories will come back as it is, but I do think I want to add some more of the circles, and the circles can kind of go behind these photos. So my next job is to trim these down. I'm going to get rid of the white borders completely on these since nothing else has quite white borders. And then punch out quite a few circles and hearts and things and just see what I can do with the embellishments. I was fine with taking that one photo of my husband and I out because I really think this page should be more about him and the day, and I have a picture of the three of us and the fact that we all three went on this birthday, and I'll get to that more in a little bit. So I'm doing some punching. I can tell from the way this paper's been used, I did punching with it the last time, but I don't remember what layout I used it on, so it doesn't matter. This one's gonna be different. And I think a couple of these papers like that stripe were not from Saturday morning. I think they were something else and they got lumped into these, but they certainly match really well. And that's a black and white print. My mother's wearing black, and just nice neutral that kind of goes with things. I tend to forget about those a lot of times, but I did the heart out of the middle of that, and then I can fill in the middle some other way. So we're going to do some small circles with the hearts and just add some color here. I'm going to have some enamel dots to dress them up with a little bit later on. And I'm doing this late in the evening. And I got to admit, when I walked away from this that night, I thought the next morning I'd come back and want to totally redo it because I really didn't think I would like those embellishments. But I do like the embellishments. I thought they looked very good with the photos. In the light of day, it was really working for me. So I'm adding some ink around the edges of the hearts and things, and then I'm going to hunt some smaller embellishments to go with this, enamel dots, and also I get into the wood veneer pieces, which you're going to see here in just a moment. One of the things when I start shopping the wood veneer that I find are these the little people. I've got some wood hearts, and I'm going to have those little people out here in just a moment. Birthdays are the big thing in our family. We don't do much for Christmas or other holidays, but for the last several years, the four of us, both of my parents and my husband and I, would go out for each other's birthdays. And our birthdays are March, April, May, and June. So we had one in every month, and so every month somebody got to pick their place, wherever they wanted to go. Very often it was an out-of-town trip, a day trip, and it was their day. Well, since my dad passed away last year, we're doing a lot of things with my mom, but it's now become the three of us. And I wanted to subtly mention that, not to exclude my father, but just to say that we're still doing this. We're just doing it with Mother. And this particular trip to the garden, I know my husband picked this location because of her, because she hadn't been before, and he wanted to make it a fun day for her, even though it was his birthday. And I thought that was very generous of him. So I decided to do some paper piercing. I always call this wrong. I always want to say paper piecing. It's paper piercing, where you're using the little templates and punching little holes, and very often I would embroider over these little holes, and that was my plan here. And I get out my embroidery floss. I decided on some shades of blue. I get that out, and I'm going to punch the holes here in a moment. And what you're going to find, though, is that I like it with just the holes. I thought I might, but I went ahead and picked out the embroidery floss. I've still got that from back in the 80s. Actually, I think I might have started collecting that. I did. I started collecting that in the 70s. I was in junior high school when I was first starting to do embroidery, and did that all the way through, I guess, sometime in the 90s I quit doing embroidery. But I still use my embroidery floss. But I liked those little that subtle little punched holes on the edges of those photos, and I didn't feel like I needed that embroidery floss. Now the title's going to get a fair amount of attention because I want to say Young at Heart, and I decided to do this all in various shades of red. I love that those stickers there with white and just the letters, the red in just outlines, and at. I can use an at symbol. And I thought it would be fun to have a large heart, and I had to go hunt something. I didn't want to do the punches anymore. I found a piece of chipboard, found it very quickly, probably the last heart I still have in chipboard, and I'm going to paint it white. This is just plain old ordinary craft paint. I use the Anita's brand. It's just my favorite. It's also one of the cheapest. I'm just painting a coat of that in white. I thought it would take a couple of coats, but actually one was enough. And I'm going to go over it with some red dashes, like stitch lines, with a red marker. I used one of the old Stampin' Up! Markers just in case I kind of messed it up with the paint. That typically doesn't happen, but just in case. And then I'll write the word heart on there. I end up going back over that again to make it a little darker because I didn't do such a hot job the first time. And we're going to glue that on with Tombow, and I've typed up some journaling that says something to the effect of, you know, no matter how many candles you have on your cake, you will always be young at heart. So that's what our title is about. I have very little other journaling because I just didn't really need it. And then I'm going to decorate up the rest of the embellishments to wrap up this 2-page birthday page. And I'll add a couple of stickers as well just to fill things in. I added just a couple more stickers to the page. And let me show you some close-ups here. So I've punched out lots of pieces from that paper collection. I had to kind of piece together my title here, but I think the title is really the centerpiece of this to accent the photos, and it puts you in the right mood, and it speaks to the subject of the photos and the day, which was more about the birthday than it was really about the gardens. But I do have some, you know, photos of some of the pretty things, and I didn't really feel like they need a lot of journaling. So that's our 2-pager with 8 photos in lots of different sizes and lots of different kinds of embellishments on the page as well. Got to use some of the paper piercing and some of my punches that I haven't used in a really long time. So, oh, and an old piece of chipboard, so that was another bonus to it too. So a lot of fun things. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the page, and if you like the video, if you'll give it a thumbs up, then I think that helps YouTube advance my channel. Thanks again.